Let me show you something. If you're sending 500 emails a month and getting 30% open rates, that's about 150 opens. If you bump that up to 50% open rates just by changing your subject line, that's 250 opens. 66% more eyeballs on your messaging without sending a single extra email. And if your reply rate is even 5%, that's a difference between 7 replies and 12 replies. Over a quarter, that's 15 extra conversations that could turn into meetings. Over a year, that's 60 meetings you're leaving on the table just because your subject lines are terrible. This is why subject lines matter. Not because they're magic, but because the math compounds. And when I made this shift as a rep, going from generic subject lines to the 3 frameworks I'm about to show you, I went on to average 138% of my quota, never missing my number ever again. In this video, I'm breaking down the 3 subject line types that actually work in 2026, the 5 mistakes that are killing your open rates, and the exact character limits, formatting rules, and preview text strategies that turn cold emails into booked meetings. Look, I know that sounds like a bold claim, but let me break down exactly why most reps are leaving meetings on the table, and more importantly, what you should be doing instead. The biggest mistake that I often see with the reps I coach in Outbound OS is their subject lines are way too long. The reason this kills your reply rates is you have to put yourself in your prospect's shoes. When they receive your email, they see 3 things before they open it: the subject line, hey name, and the first few characters of your email, which is also known as the preview text. All of that combined gives you about 30 to 40 characters total. If your subject line is taking up 20 to 25 of those characters, you're going to be missing out on relevant information that your prospect could be reading because your subject line is just way too long. Or the prospect can completely miss your trigger and they won't even be able to see why you're reaching out in the first place. And the trigger is the most important part to get someone to open that message. It's the context, the relevancy. It explains why should somebody care. So if you have a massive subject line, something like quick question about your sales team's ramp process, the prospect's going to see quick question about your sales team, hey John, and they'll never get to see the relevant trigger as to why they should open it right now and why you're reaching out in the first place. So they just decide to delete it because it looks like every other generic sales email in their inbox. Every prospect has a mental spam filter. They're busy doing their job, focused on their team, focused on hitting their own KPIs. So their mental spam filter is designed to get rid of emails that look anything like sales. So if they think it looks like a sales email, they're going to put it straight in the bin before they even open it. Again, you have to remember they're doing their day-to-day job. A CFO is focused on cash flow, checking finances, leading their team. They don't want to respond to sales emails every single day. So keep it short, make it look internal like a Slack headline. 2 words max and just the topic of the message. So instead of the example I went through earlier of quick question about your sales team's ramps process, it could just be something as simple as ramp time or ramping reps. This way, it looks like an internal message and the chance of getting an open will be much higher. Mistake number 2 is using questions and punctuations in your subject line. Things like quick question, thoughts on this, can I help with? Now, these crushed back in 2020 where you could blast 10,000 people in a sequence, get hundreds of responses, and the spam filters were a lot more loose, but that just doesn't work anymore. These subject lines have been overused so much that they now scream sales emails. When everybody starts using it, it becomes the average and loses its edge. So when a prospect sees this, they think this is a sales email, so you know where that's going, straight to the bin. And nobody writes internal messages like that. When have you ever messaged someone in Slack and said, quick question with a question mark? Never. So what we want to do is make it internal. So just say things like pipeline review or Q4 numbers or whatever the key topic of the email is itself. So when a prospect sees a question mark in the subject line, they know it's coming from outside the organization and they're probably not going to open it and give you that response. This year is all about relevancy and standing out, not using the same tactics that the other 10,000 reps trying to get their attention are doing. So cut the subject lines, cut punctuation, and make it internal. Mistake number 3 is doing things like company name, company name. Now, this is another classic that used to work back in 2020, but has lost its edge in 2025 and heading into 2026. Subject lines like your company X my company or collaboration between company and company just don't work anymore for the same reason as above. When the prospect sees this, they know it's going to be a sales email, so they're going to put it in the bin before they even open it. You could have the best pain and a genuine great solution, but if nobody's opening your emails, they're never going to respond. And I've said this so many times, but it's so important to reiterate, which is never put your company name in the subject line. Data from Gong and Lavender has showed that this massively reduces your open rates in your cold emails, the same with punctuation. So we should always try to side with the data and not try to go against it. The only time we should ever mention our company in a cold email is when we get to the very end and we're introducing our product as the solution to take them from their negative current state to the desired state that they want to get to. If your messaging is relevant enough, they're going to respond. You don't need to announce who you are in the subject line because it adds nothing adding to it for the customer. The fourth mistake is loading your subject line with buzzwords and adjectives. Things like streamline your sales process, optimize your pipeline, 10x your meetings, enhance, all of these filler words. And the reason it doesn't work is it adds no inherent value. They're not tangible and they don't mean anything. It's just marketing phrases that's left up to the prospect to determine what do they actually mean. These work great for marketing emails, where your company's running a nurture sequence or maybe a mass email to your entire list to try and educate them on what your company does. But in cold sales emails, they are a net negative. Cut the filler words, there's no reason for them to be there. Your job is to explain what's going on in their day to day. What's the issue? How have you helped others fix it? Not using vague words like streamline or optimize. Make it specific and make it tangible. So instead of saying we help companies to streamline their ramp process, we'd say things like we help Gong to reduce their ramp time from 6 months to 2 months by using our outbound consultant to teach their managers the best practices. Make it tangible, make it real. We want to talk about real numbers in the body of the email, not fluffy adjectives in the subject line. So cut all the adjectives and keep it simple. And the last mistake, hopefully none of you are doing this, but I see it all the time, so I have to mention it, and that's using trick subject lines. Things like re or forward when there's no previous conversation, or things like my CEO asked me to reach out. Anything that makes it seem that you already have a relationship with the prospect. Now, don't get me wrong, these can get you opens. You might see 50, 60% open rate, but the prospect feels tricked into opening it. So the real problem is they're not going to respond, or if they do, it's often a negative response, so they'll even mark you as spam as they feel annoyed that they got tricked to open this message instead of opening it because they were genuinely curious. You're starting the relationship on fake trust, and that's the worst way to do it, especially in B2B where you're trying to close serious deals with B2B decision makers. So never try to set up a fake relationship or start it out on a fake promise. It just doesn't work. And even if they open it, you're not going to get responses. So now you know what not to do. Let me show you what actually works in 2026. And to be honest, it's really simple. The first thing is to keep it as short as possible. As we mentioned with the preview text, you get about 30 to 50 characters. The second thing is you should be keeping your messaging quite vague. But let me explain what I mean by vague. So I don't mean confusing. I mean just the topic of the email. Nothing more, nothing less. Keep it simple and structure it based on the pain of the email that you're writing. So the first framework we're going to go through is the topic only subject line. So let's go through the actual setup. So if I was reaching out to a sales leader, let's say a CRO, a VP of sales, and they've recently hired a few new reps and I'm curious how they're ramping them, I want to talk about the challenges that come with hiring new reps, ramping them up to speed and how we've helped others. So most reps would write something like quick question about your new hires or thoughts on ramping your SDR team or help with your team's onboarding. But what we'd actually do and what actually works in 2025 and 2026 is a subject line like ramp time. That's it. 2 words, title case. Or even better, you can make it personal to the reps they've just hired. So let's say they just brought on a new SDR called John. My subject line would be something as simple as John's ramp. This way, it looks like something they'd be discussing internally anyway. So they're going to click on the email without even thinking twice about it or questioning if it's a sales email. And sales leaders talk about ramp time all the time. Therefore, this slips through that mental spam filter and gets them to open the email, which is the most important thing to start. Again, the whole goal of a subject line is to get somebody to open it. Sell the open, your first line sells the next line, and it all carries on with each other. But just get them to open the email first. The most important thing to think about when writing these subject lines is what is this person already talking about in their day to day, every day. Use their language, use the internal terminology, make it seem like a normal conversation, and your open rates will increase massively. The second thing is to use title case without any adjectives. Most reps try to do lowercase or different types of subject lines, but we always want to do title case. Now, I know there's a lot of debate on this. Some people say lowercase crushes and looks more casual, but I'm a big data guy and I believe in the numbers. And the data from Gong and Lavender shows that title case works the best and outperforms any other style. So here's the format. Capital letter for the first word, capital letter for the second word if there is one, no punctuation, no adjectives, no flow. So for example, ramp time with both being capital. Q1 pipeline with both being capital and title case. Team expansion with both having capital letters, or outbound strategy both having capital letters. Not something like ramp time with all lowercase, because the title case gets more responses based on the data from millions of cold emails sent that got analyzed by Gong. The third framework is to keep it under 20 characters long, including spaces. So here's the math. You get 30 to 50 total characters visible before the email is opened. So this is acting as free real estate in your prospect's inbox. So with your subject line plus hey name plus the first body plus the first part of the body of the email is what they're going to actually see. So if your subject line is 10 to 15 characters, that's perfect, as you still get to lead with the trigger in your preview text. If it's 20 to 25 characters, you're pushing it a little bit, and anything above 30 characters, you're just killing your preview text completely. So a subject line like ramp time, even including the space, is only 9 characters long. Plus, hey John being 10 characters, then the rest of the characters, such as notice you recently hired 5 new SDRs, is still going to fit in that preview text. And this is where your trigger shows up, and that's what's going to get them to open it. So many people think it's just the subject line that determines an open, but the preview text is a massively underestimated part. If you lead with something like, hey John, I hope you're doing well, they're instantly going to know it's a sales email. If you lead with, hey John, we offer, they're instantly going to know it's a sales email. So lead with your subject line, call out their name, and go straight into the trigger to get the curiosity piqued so they want to open it. Now let's go through a different example. If our subject line was quick question about your SDR team, that's 36 characters. Plus, hey John as another 10, your preview text is going to be noticed, and that's it. They're not going to see the trigger, they're not going to see why you're reaching out, and ultimately they're not going to open it. It's not just the subject line that determines your open, it's your preview text as well. So make sure you're thinking how the two come together to help increase your open rate. So let's go through the actual system that you can implement in your cold emails to start booking more meetings. The first thing is you need to actually think about subject lines versus the email body. Now, the goal of your subject line is to sell the open of the email. It's not to demonstrate value. It's not to explain your offer. It's just to get them to open it. Then your first line of the preview text is what sells the read and sells the next line. That's where your trigger goes. That's where the relevancy happens. Then the body of your email is where you talk about pain, why it's worth solving, and what you do. This is where we go in depth on the issue they're facing, the cost of inaction, and how you've helped others. So don't try to cram everything into the subject line. Its one goal is to just get them to open the email, and the email does the rest of it. So a bad approach of this would be something like, quick question about ramping your new SDR hires faster. It's way too long at 54 characters. It has a question mark. It uses buzzwords, and it just screams that this is a sales email before they even open. Compared to a good approach of something like ramp time, it's 9 characters. We're using title case. It's based on the topic only, and it looks like an internal email. And pair that with the preview text, something like, hey Sarah, notice you recently got hired as VP of sales and brought in 6 new SDRs. You're able to fit so much relevance into that preview text with the promotion and the fact they're hiring, and calling out specifically how many people they're hiring. Now this is relevant to their role and will inherently increase the chance of them opening this email. Then the body of the email is where we're going to talk about the pain of ramping, the cost of having a long ramp period, and how we've helped different companies to ramp their reps faster to help the team hit their quota. When I switched to this framework as a rep, my open rates jumped from sub 30% to 50% plus, and my response rates jumped from 3% all the way up to 8% on some of my top campaigns, and that's double the amount of conversations I was having. But it didn't just work for me, it's worked for hundreds of reps we've coached in Outbound OS. Frank went from 3% response rates to 12% response rates, pairing this exact system with the rest of the cold email operating system we teach. And even reps like David was able to book multiple billion-dollar companies in his first few weeks of implementing this system alongside the full cold email operating system that we teach in Outbound OS. Hundreds of reps I've coached have been able to book more meetings just by fixing their subject lines and then working on the body of the email. And as I said at the very start of this video, the math compounds. If you were sending 500 emails a month with a 35% open rate, that's 175 opens and people seeing your message. Get that to 50% and that's 250 opens. That's an extra 75 prospects who are seeing your messages every single month. That jumps from a 5% response rate. That means your replies jump from about 8 to 9 to 12 to 13 replies every single month. Over a quarter, that's 12 to 15 extra meetings that you've got just from fixing your subject lines without sending more emails or changing anything else about your approach. So here's exactly what you should do after watching this video. And if you're thinking, what can I do to start booking more meetings? The first step is to audit your current subject lines. Go look at your last 10 emails sent, count the characters of the subject lines, make sure none are above 20, check for questions, adjectives, or company names, and cut all of them if you have it. And I guarantee you'll be making at least 2 to 3 of these mistakes because I was making all of them. The second step is to rewrite using the topic only framework. Pick the main topic of your email, reduce it to 2 words, use title case, and and that's your new subject line. Step 3 is to make sure your trigger is visible in the preview text. Your first line should always start with the trigger as to why you're reaching out to that prospect. Notice you recently got hired, or so you got promoted to, or looks like the team's expanding into. That's what actually gets them to read the email. And step 4 is to test it. Without data, you'll never know if this actually works. So send 50 to 100 emails with your new subject lines and track your opens. And if you do it, I promise you'll see a jump in open rate. Now, look, this isn't a silver bullet that's going to fix all of your outbound problems overnight. But if you implement just this one thing, keeping your subject line short, using title case, and making sure your trigger shows in the preview text, you're going to see more emails opened, more conversations started, and more meetings booked. And again, if you want my support to build this out properly, to test subject lines specifically for your ICP, your niche, and to dial in your full cold email operating system, feel free to book a call in the description and we'll walk through your sequences to see if this is a fit. But either way, I hope this helped. Start using these subject lines this week and let me know in the comments how it goes, and I'll see you in the next one.